Hey everyone, it's been over 2 minutes. Haven't been raped yet. But we can't say the same for the GamerGate community. Hi, I'm Diana Davison. I do a number of videos speaking out against the fraud of feminism, and I've been asked a number of times to do a video on Anita Sarkeesian. I haven't so far because I was of the opinion that we already had enough non-gamer females in the discussion, Anita Sarkeesian being one of them.
Critiquing the depiction of females in pop culture and gaming culture, because you love your gaming, but you moved. There was something that tipped you into acting.
I'm doing video games, so it's not exactly a fandom. I'm not a fan of video games. I actually had to learn a lot about video games in the process of making this.
Now this came out around a year ago, that Anita Sarkeesian, who promotes herself as a gamer who wants to change the way women are treated in her community, it came out that she actually is not a gamer at all. She doesn't like gaming.
And also video games, like I would love to play video games, but I don't want to go around shooting people and ripping off their heads, and it's just gross. So hence this is my response to that.
Alright, so I'm just going to tell you up front that I'm not a gamer and I've only loosely been following the situation. My video today is not to expose her as a fraud in the gaming industry, because that's been done many times by many people more knowledgeable about this than I am. But I do take exception to people who are liars and frauds, and that's the video that I'm going to make today. What is going on here has nothing to do with gaming, and it has everything to do with academic feminism. So when asked what inspired feminist frequency on this panel, she quite clearly states that it started in her graduate years in university, and the seminar was given during that time frame. So back in 2010, she was already well at work figuring out how to create a patriarchy example by rearranging other people's stories and making it into the story she wants to tell. And the story she wants to tell is the feminist story, the one they've been trying to sell us for a long time.
So I actually started Feminist Frequency in grad school because I was really frustrated with how alienating feminist theory was in academia. That this idea of feminism is a liberating idea and should be available to all people. But in academia, you have to be privileged to attend, you have to be privileged to read the books, you have to be privileged to access scholarly text, you have to learn how to write a certain way that nobody else can understand. That's not, why would we trap these concepts in this space? And so I actually started Feminist Frequency, heavily influenced by Bell Hooks, who talked about how pop culture is where the pedagogy is happening.
The evidence is in Anita Sarkeesian's own video on her website, from which the footage where she admits that she's not a gamer comes from. It's actually part of a bigger seminar. I think it's a shame that the clips that were released to the public didn't actually investigate the rest of the seminar that she was giving, which gives us a much bigger understanding of why she is doing this and how she is doing this. So that's what my video is going to discuss today.
Once you have a systemic and institutional framework, you see how oppression manifests in many subtle ways.
Well, Anita pretends that she's talking about gaming, and she's using evidence from games, which she's obviously never played before. Lots of videos, exposing her lack of knowledge of the games she's discussing. What she's actually talking about is something that's made quite clear in the seminar. It's a thing called Vidding.
Vidding is cutting up clips of shows to a soundtrack, to a song. And the song helps narrate what you're trying to say. It stands for fanvids, if you've heard of that. And again, it was started in 1975 by women, and they were literally cutting up slides and putting them together. And what they would do is they would take fandoms that they liked, TV shows, movies, that sort of thing, and rewrite the narratives. Rewrite the stories to tell the stories they wanted to tell, or to do a character analysis.
Now, Anita Sarkeesian was studying women's studies and learning how to be a feminist.
I had to learn how to be a feminist. So it wasn't until I was in my early to mid-20s that I began to realize my impression of feminism had been completely wrong. With the help of some amazing mentors and by reading a lot of feminist writing, especially the words of women of color and queer women from around the world, I learned to see through a sociological lens.
And she was also involved in media studies and communication. So one of the things she came across was a style of editing that's called Vidding, and it was mostly done by women. She was investigating this as part of like the women's history idea that women have been very involved in society, but their stories have largely been untold. So this was a form of storytelling that was mostly done by women.
Again, it was started in 1975 by women, and they were literally like cutting up slides and putting them together. And what they would do is they would take fandoms that they liked, TV shows, movies, that sort of thing, and rewrite the narrative.
Now this technique, Vidding, is very, very important because she describes how it's done, and this is what she has done with the gaming industry. One of the problems that feminism has always faced is that they have this patriarchy theory, and yet patriarchy was really difficult to locate. They couldn't really make it clear to everybody. They could find little bits and pieces that like, okay, maybe you got something there. But overall, the patriarchy theory, feminist patriarchy theory, was lacking in evidence. So one of her jobs was to create evidence of patriarchy. And Vidding allows you to do just that. She explains it quite clearly in her seminar.
And it's a very subversive way for women to be able to rewrite what they want to see in the media and in their TV shows. To say, we don't want all these straight characters. A lot of slash fitters talk about how they're just writing what's in the text already. And so there's already all these subtleties and sort of meta in the text that they're just bringing out.
What they do is this art form is they take somebody else's stories and they splice them up and they reassemble them and they put them back together again to tell their story. Now, she can do this as a feminist ethically in her mind because feminism is closely tied to postmodernism and collectivism. Actually, Sarkeesian makes this point many times in the panel discussion.
Unfortunately, many contemporary discourses in and around feminism tend to emphasize a form of hyper-individualism, which is informed by that neoliberal worldview. Even if an individual woman can make patriarchy work for her, it's still a losing game for the rest of the women on the planet.
According to postmodernists, the last person on Earth that you should ask in terms of what their story is saying and what it means is the author. This is postmodernist thinking, that the collective minds, the assessments and opinions of your audience are actually the reality creators, and that the author can't have any particular claim on their work, and they're probably too subjective to understand its actual meaning. And they really think that reality is created like that, that an author is actually not in possession of their own work. Just like collectivists believe that a person is not the owner of their life, that the individual in a collective society owes their life and should make choices according to the best interests of the group, not according to their own needs. And Sarkeesian actually makes a point of this in her panel discussion speech as well.
In order to be a feminist, we have a responsibility beyond ourselves. We have a responsibility to each other, and we have a responsibility to work for the collective liberation of all women.
So, what does Anita do with the game? I'm going to go back to, because I said I'm not a gamer. When I did play games when I was a child, and I'm going to go all the way back to that time period and show you what the game of Pac-Man looks like through a feminist lens. Alright, so gaming is limited by technology. Back in the time of Pac-Man, technology was really limited, and so you can see the basics of a game. You've got point A and point B. In this case, you've got a little dude that has to clear all the pellets off of the screen in a maze, and he's got obstacles in his way. So the obstacles are an important element of the game. In this case, they are ghosts. Now, through the feminist lens, you start adding interpretations onto this. So you've got the little dude, which is the man, and obviously the ghosts are females because they're wearing dresses, right? So the Pac-Man, the dude, he's the only agent in this game. He's the only one with an actual activity, and you can see the women all just like sort of floating around and aimlessly and not really doing anything of importance except for being a threat somehow to the guy. You know, patriarchal vision of women. They're afraid of us, right? Now, when you look a little closer, through the feminist lens, of course, you can see the racism inherent in the original game of Pac-Man because they transform into these blue-robed, creatures, which is obviously women in their burqas. So that's all it takes to transform a simple game into evidence of the patriarchy.
I sort of joke about how it was the most liberating thing that ever happened to me, and also the most frustrating for everyone around me. Because like when you start learning about systems, everything is sexist, everything is racist, everything is homophobic, and you have to point it all out to everyone all the time. So there's a good year of my life. There's a good year of my life where it was just I was the most obnoxious person to be around.
Now, of course, if you know anything about Pac-Man, you'll know that the knockoff game was Ms. Pac-Man. So this feminist narrative that gaming has tried to exclude women from it, no. And this is back in 1982. Pac-Man was the most popular game, and they noticed that women were playing it. So they designed the follow-up, the knockoff one, to have a female character as the main protagonist so that more women would get interested in the game. And it actually ended up being considered a superior game to the original, mostly because they added more technology to it, which was more random movements and a bigger variety of mazes for you to get through. So way back in 1982, biggest game instantly was followed up with the female Ms. Pac-Man version of it. Women were not excluded. In fact, they wanted to get women's money too. So they have tried to include women in the gaming industry right from the start.
I don't know what their problem is. I just talk about video games.
Now, playing a video game and being a gamer are vastly different things. So nobody's disputing that Anita has played video games at some point in her childhood. She's shown us pictures of that. But it's not the same thing as being a gamer. And let's just revisit her admissions from her seminar that she was not and is not a gamer.
I'm not a fan of video games. I actually had to learn a lot about video games in the process of making this. And also video games, like I would love to play video games, but I don't want to go around shooting people and ripping off their heads, and it's just gross. So hence this is my response to that.
And if that's not enough evidence, you can go and you can find lots of videos showing how she gets the details of the stories wrong because she doesn't actually know the game. And some of the games that she promotes as having positive views of women, she actually gets those wrong as well. So, but my video is not about that. My video is about the feminist angle, and this has always just been about feminism. It's never been about gaming. It is to show you how feminists are so intent on proving a theory that they're willing to actually rearrange reality through things like Vidding in order to make their patriarchy theory appear to be true.
Literally like cutting up slides and putting them together. And what they would do is they would take fandoms that they liked, TV shows, movies, that sort of thing, and rewrite the narrative.
And this is really important, not just for GamerGate. This is important for the bigger community because it's not just Anita Sarkeesian doing this. And in the GamerGate fiasco, Sarkeesian is only one player. It's a much bigger thing than Anita Sarkeesian, but she is basically the heroine of feminism right now because she did one thing that they have so far not really been able to do, and that is she located patriarchy. And the only way for feminists to do that is to actually rearrange facts and create patriarchy out of thin air.
I don't want to use the word limited, but you are sort of limited to the lyrics of the song, right? And you're transforming the song and you're changing the meaning of it. But at the same time, I was restricted to what the lyrics that I had here.
There are a few rules that make a difference between a good story and a bad story. So one of the things is only write what you know. And I would say another one is that your characters should act true to who they are. And now at the beginning of her seminar, she's talking about this thing called the Bechdel test. I hope I got that right. Where she says that you can tell the nature of a story and its relationship to women in general by a couple of factors. Are there more than two women in the story? Do they have names? And do they talk about something other than men? Now, women, and you can see this with feminists, spend most of their time talking about men or how to get men to do what they want them to do. And pretty much every feminist panel is talking about their relationship to men. And the one that I'm going to link to below, which I got some of the footage from, is no different. They spend the entire time talking about men. And in the film Thelma and Louise, which I think can be seen as a, pretty well agreed upon feminist film, that entire film is about their relationship to men. And one of the times they start to break free, they actually, Gina Davis's character picks up how to rob a bank or how to rob a store from a male character, and then she acts like a man. So there's nothing about Thelma and Louise that really has two women talking about anything other than men or their relationship to men. So how can storytellers of any kind in the gaming industry or anywhere else really meet this criteria when women obsess over how to control men? And in fact, what they're doing in the gaming community, seeing it as a male-dominated space, is they are again obsessing over how to control men. What they're saying about gaming is completely irrelevant. It has nothing to do with gaming. This is all about feminists trying to create patriarchy where it doesn't exist and trying to deny their own natures. Whereas the people writing the games obviously get it a little bit better. Maybe if women stop acting that way, they'll stop being portrayed that way. All right, so I'm going to just wrap it up because it's super hot here, and to film this I have to have the door closed. So all power to the GamerGate community who are trying to expose the fraud of what's going on. Hopefully I gave you some more tools to work with. And, you know, in a way you kind of have to admire the amount of money that Anita's managed to make off of misrepresenting an entire industry. So, you know, kudos there. And so now for the rape joke of the week. In the headlines, man got arrested and admitted to 8 hours of sexual assault. To be fair, if I could do that for 8 hours, I'd want people to know about it too.